I have seen some absolute car crashes when it comes to catering this season. It has actually been insane, which is why this video has literally been at the top of my filming list to get out to you guys so that you've got the advice so that this does not happen to you. Because some of my weddings I don't think would have actually happened properly on the day if we weren't there managing the crisis from the caterers. Hello lovely couples and welcome back to my channel. I'm Lauren, wedding planner and owner of Bluebird Creative. I provide a weekly dose of wedding planning goodness for the modern couple. So if you haven't already guys, then make sure you subscribe to my channel and don't forget to follow me over on Instagram at bluebird_creative, where I provide lots more juicy tips, a lot of behind the scenes content, and I showcase all the weddings that we're doing this season and loads of reels so you can see what we actually get up to. So join me over there guys. Right guys, let's jump into this week's video, which is about caterers and how to choose the right caterer, because I've seen a lot of boo-boos this year. Okay guys, so just to lay out the facts, catering is going to take up a large part of your wedding budget, okay? It's going to take between 20 to 25% of your budget. Now, it's obviously dependent on how many guests you've got coming. The more guests, the more expensive the catering is going to cost. But it also depends on what type of food you want. Do you want a 3-course sit-down plated dinner? Do you want a buffet? Do you want food trucks? Do you want a 3-course sit-down but you want it feasting style? There's loads of different options. Do you just want 2 courses? Do you want to have your cake as your dessert? I mean, literally guys, so many options. And that is not what I'm going to be talking about today. But we want to know how to pick the right caterer, or to pick a good caterer. A good caterer. So my biggest piece of advice for you guys here is you're going to want to book your caterer early for starters, because the good ones are going to be booked up early. Now you can't do it until you've obviously booked your venue. That is the number one thing you have to do. Once you have your venue, you have your date, you have your location, then you can look for the next suppliers, one of which will be your caterers, and you want to do that as early as possible. So obviously you need to have had the conversation on what type of food you want. If you're not entirely sure, that's fine. Explore some different options and get some quotes in. Things that you're going to want to ask your caterers and you're going to want to get them to quote for you is for the 3 courses, for example, whether it's feasting style, whether it's plated, are they including drinks in their costs? Can you provide your own drink? Is there a corkage fee? If you were to buy the booze in it, would they serve it for you? Does the venue have to provide the drinks? Were they pouring it? Do you need to get a separate company in? And so on. And you can actually look at different options for this as well, because it can sometimes work out cheaper or more expensive depending on what combination you go for. But you definitely want to have that conversation. You also want to see if they've got a front of house catering manager. I actually have that in my contract now, guys. If I'm working on a wedding, there has to be a front of house manager or a bar manager on site, because we have had some situations this year where it has to happen, okay? So if you want your food to come out at the right time and to be managed well, you want a front of house manager. So just ask that. Just ask what is included staff-wise. You know, are they going to have enough servers on the day? Is somebody going around specifically topping up the wine and the water? Are they just going to place the water down on the tables? Ask them that, or tell them what you would prefer so that that is clear right from the start. You'll also have the option to upgrade your cutlery, your tableware, all the crockery. A lot of people don't always realise this, but you can do that, and your caterers are the ones to speak to about that. So you might decide that you want charger plates, you might decide that you want a different coloured napkin. These sorts of conversations don't come up until you have your tasting, but I just thought it was worth you actually knowing this, because when I got married, I had a tasting. They did not tell me. I mean, the caterers were wonderful and I still work with them, but back in the day, 8 years ago, I didn't get told. I didn't know that I could change the colour of my napkin, and that I could change the colour of the cutlery, and that I could have a coloured water glass if I wanted, or that there were even those options. And I would have loved those options. So I'm just letting you guys know there's options, so you can investigate those options. And you don't always have to go through your caterer either. You can look at external companies and get them come in separately. So there are options. Speak to your preferred caterer about that as well. Going back to the point of choosing the right supplier, the things that you need to be considering are obviously the cost, presentation, because for some people that's really important. Now, obviously, whether the food is good. Now, if you're a foodie, this is going to be a massive, massive factor, and I get it. Like, you want to have a tasting, right? You also want to consider the service. Now, speak to your caterers again. Some caterers, you don't actually get a tasting until you've booked them. So I appreciate that that's a little bit tricky for some people that are foodies. If you would rather have a tasting before you book them, speak to them about that, and I'm sure they can organise a private tasting for you. But the thing I feel like people are missing here, and basically the whole reason for me wanting to do this video, which isn't going to be overly long because I just really want to drum in this particular fact, and that is service. Now, you won't know from the tasting whether they're good with service or not, okay? You won't know whether they are polite on the day. I mean, I really hope that they are, and I haven't really come across that, but I'm throwing it out there as one of the things, okay? You won't know whether they can cater for really large amounts of guests. We had a 300 guest wedding this year. The caterers did not cope. Absolute horror story, my friends. And I am going to do a roundup of the 2022 wedding horror stories for a video, so don't worry. Let me know in the comments box below if you do want that, because last year's was funny, and if you haven't seen it, I'll link it up here for you. But can they actually cater for the masses? Have they done it before? Is this their first rodeo? Are they usually used to catering for 60 to 80 guests and you've got 200 guests? Do they cater for your type of cuisine on a regular basis? That's something that you want to consider as well. But we have experienced so many catering companies this year that are just so slow and so behind. Now, it is a slight COVID issue in that coming out of the pandemic, not as many people were working in catering, so staffing has been a bit of an issue, which has obviously meant that they haven't got as many waiting staff on weddings. So I totally get it. And when we've been building our timelines, we're actually allowing a little bit longer into the timelines for service and speaking to our caterers and checking that if they think that's enough time. But there have still been issues, guys, and it's not okay. And whether this is down to inexperience or whatever, it's not okay, and you want to be able to check that. So checking that there's a front of house manager, asking the questions of who's going to be pouring the wine, are we putting it on the tables, are you pouring it, that sort of thing. That's really important. How many waiting staff do you typically have for this size wedding? Just asking those questions, just so that if they can answer them, then they're used to it, right? So I think that's really important, but also going off recommendation. And this, I think, is the most important one. Has somebody used this caterer, and can they recommend them? We have a specific recommended list of all suppliers, and I urge my clients to book our caterers because I know firsthand that not only is their food tasting incredible, it looks incredible, and their service is brilliant. And I am really, really, in fact, I kind of almost want to be a little bit stricter with who my clients use for catering because of all the situations that we've been in this year. Now, obviously, I do mainly coordination, so I don't have control over who my clients book. We just recommend our favourites because they're amazing. But there have been a lot of issues, and a lot of my clients have been unhappy with the catering situation. I can think of 2 weddings in particular where they've actually had to go back to the caterers afterwards and have discussions about refunds and just talk about complaints because they really weren't happy. Now, that doesn't fall on our shoulders. We actually manage the situations. I had a wedding recently where the catering company bought champagne flutes with them. The couple weren't having toast, and they'd ordered in champagne coupes separately for the drinks reception. They didn't realise that they wanted red and white wine glasses down on the table. They didn't know that there was a pre-ceremony drink station being set up. They didn't know all the drinks that were going out for the drinks reception. They brought the evening food out an hour early. Bearing in mind, all of this information was in my timeline and my notes that I had sent over to the catering company, who clearly, can you tell I'm passionately angry about this, they hadn't read it. They hadn't read it. They turned up and they had all the wrong information. And if we hadn't been there, it could have been an absolute disaster, okay? And the food service was extremely slow. I did my absolute best, but I'm not in the kitchen. I'm not managing the kitchen. It's not my job. I'm just relaying the information, and the couple felt it, unfortunately, which was really, really sad. Luckily, they were happy with everything that we did, but I still feel sad that the whole thing didn't get a 10 out of 10. So I want to urge you guys to really consider who your catering team is. Think about the service. You know, if you're we've used pizza companies, so food trucks and pizza companies. We've used several different ones this year, and it's deciding how you want your service to go. Are you calling them up table by table? Pizza is not the best thing for that, doing it buffet style, because they're making the pizzas on the go. You will have tables waiting a really, really long time before they get fed, and then you get hangry guests, which is not the one. Pizza is the best food for evening food. It is my absolute favourite. So bearing these little things in mind, if you guys have got any questions on catering and food, then please put them in the comments box below, because I would love to answer specific questions on catering to help you guys find the best caterers that suit you. I hope you found this video helpful. It feels like I'm preaching slightly, and I'm sorry, but I just feel so passionately about it, because I don't want anyone else to be in a pickle on their wedding day and be disappointed. So make sure that you check, go on recommendation, somebody that's used them, or the venue, who do they use, who do they wholeheartedly recommend, and check that they're not paying to be on the recommended list. Check that the venue are recommending them because they truly believe that they're amazing. Speak to your florist, speak to your other suppliers, they'll be able to recommend as well. Speak to your wedding planner. Ask me for my supplier list. All my clients that book with me get my recommended supplier list. Nobody pays to be on the list. We send it out at the beginning of our, as soon as our clients sign with us, we send it out so they can use it for their planning, and we check it every year and update it. It's not got loads and loads of suppliers on it because we're really picky with who goes on there. We just have a few for each different category so that we're showcasing the best of the suppliers that we've worked with. Right, guys, I will leave it there. I hope you found this helpful. Good luck with finding your caterers. Hit me up with all the comments and the questions. I want them all, guys. Have a fantastic week. I'll see you on the next one.